Hello. The video you are about to see contains images of dolls only.
And chips. No, you can't put too much my dustbin, my dustbin, my dustbin. You can't put too much my dustbin, my dustbin.
Impy Hartjan, stop making all that racket. You'll wake Mummy and then we'll both be in trouble.
We were singing. Where are we, Icky?
Icky was singing, you were croaking like a frog.
I was not.
Were? Anyway, hurry up and get over here, we're live.
Oh, you. Come on, sit down here, darling. We're out of breath, aren't we, Icky? Oh, goodness gracious. I told you about jumping round. Anyway, hey everybody, this is Lacey. I hope you've all had a pretty week. We've had no takeout week, haven't we, Icky? We don't like it when it's too hot, do we, Icky? It gives us headaches.
That's right, poor little Impy. Remember that awful one you had in the night when I told you the story of the Joyburies and the missing Meggle?
Oh, dear. But did you do the magic, Bert? I want to hear that story all over again.
All right then.
Magic voices fill the air, magic memories take us there.
My Bert. My Bert. My Bert, please wake up.
Impy, it's not morning yet. You know better than to wake me up in the night.
Sorry about that, my Bert, but Icky and me need you.
Is something wrong, Impy, darling?
Yeah. Icky and me have got an awful headache.
Oh, my poor Impy. Poor Icky, too. It's no wonder in this muggy heat, though, is it? Tell you what, you pop back to bed, and I'll bring you a junior aspirin and a nice cold drink. How about that? You'll be better in no time.
Oh, Icky and me don't want to go back to bed yet, my Bert. We're all sweating. Can't we have our drink in the den and sit near Daddy's nice tall fan? We'll be ever so good, won't we, Icky?
Oh, all right. Of course you can, honey girl. Off you go to the den, then. I'll be in 1 minute to get your drink and your aspirin. And remember, be very, very quiet. Now then, goodness gracious. Or should I say goodness gracious? Where's my slippers? Oh, yes, here they are. Oh, I've got them now. I'm getting too old for this. Getting up in the middle of the night. I've never heard of such a thing. Oh, here we go. Right, let's get this aspirin, shall we?
Oh, that's so much better, isn't it, Icky? Have some of this, Icky. Try this, Icky. Oh, you like that so much, don't we, Icky? Alright, you can have some more, darling.
Is that better, Lacey, love?
Oh, it is, my Bert, it is. Your lemon and ginger is the best drink in the whole wide world.
Naturally. Oh, shh. We must keep it down. I don't want Mummy or Daddy to wake up. Are you cool enough to go back to bed now, darling?
Oh, no, my Bert. We haven't finished our drink. And anyway, we want to sit by this nice cool fan for a while. It's so lovely. But you don't, Dodo.
Oh, as if. Well, how about a story, then? While we're all cooling down, and to stop your Bert falling back asleep. Would you like one?
Oh, yeah. Do we have the other half of the story about Rosy and the donkey Snow Baby? Like that, wouldn't we, Icky?
All right. Well, you remember last time, Rosy, who lived in a top-floor flat in a high-rise block in the city, but who loved the country, had gone to the common on her 9th birthday and had found the fairy fair.
Yes, and she went on the merry-go-round, and she found a beautiful white merry-go-round donkey called Snow Baby, and the little blue lady lifted him off, and he jumped off the merry-go-round up and up and up into the air, and he floated away to the beautiful land, and he landed in a lovely field of all flowers that was like bells, wasn't it, Bert? Pink and purple and gold bells. And it had trees growing all along the sides of this field, and a river on the bottom, and a steep bank at the top that was all overgrown with lovely creeper plants that smelled like honey.
You do remember well, don't you? Rosy had got off Snow Baby's back and looked about her in wonder. "What an amazing ride," she said. "I wonder where we are."
"Don't you know?"
said a little voice.
"This is the land of Everjoy."
Rosy looked all around. Snow Baby was nibbling at the rich, sweet grass. He hadn't said a word. Then she saw to her amazement that in the high bank at the end of the field, a little brown door had opened, and a fluffy head was peeping out at her.
"Oh, what was it, my Bert? Now I'm gonna find out. Oh,
Rosy had never seen anything like this creature. It had a head rather like that of a teddy bear, fluffy, honey-coloured fur, but its ears, instead of being at the top of its head like a teddy bear's, were at the side of its head, were perfectly round, very large, and stuck out like the handles of a jug. The ears were darker gold with very pink insides. A pair of very large, very blue eyes were staring at Rosy with great interest. On top of the creature's head was what looked like a tall, green, upside-down ice cream cone. It was the fluffy creature's hair.
"Oh, it's funny, isn't it? I think he sounds cute."
Rosy stared back at the creature for a moment, and then she asked, "Please, what are you?"
"What are you? That's what I'd like to know,"
answered the creature, still not showing any more than its extraordinary head.
"That's a boring way of having your head, and your ears are too small. And can't you think of better colours for your clothes fur than those?" "Oh, what on earth? What does he mean? We don't know, do we?"
"Well, you'll find out in a minute, Impy Head. Now hush." Just at that moment, the head gave a yelp and disappeared. Another voice, quite a bit louder, could be heard from inside the bank.
"Look, you little rip-doodle, I've told you before till my paws ache and my tongue's threadbare. If I catch you talking to those silly flufferines again, I'll tickle your tail and boil you in dandelion wine, I will." "Oh, that's funny."
Rosy crept closer to the bank to see if she could see anything of the other creature talking. The one called Lork could be heard answering now.
"But, Mim, I warn't talking to any flufferines. I wouldn't do that. Not when you told me none. There's a thing there. I never saw one like it afore. It's got no fur."
"No fur?" roared the second voice.
"An ank, by the diddlers. I'll teach those nasty anks to come slip-sneaking round here."
And before Rosy knew what was happening, a big furry thing had bolted straight out of the bank, bumped into her, and knocked her flying.
"Oh, goodness gracious."
Yes, indeed, Impy. Lork's Mem hadn't expected to bump into anything so big. She too had been knocked clean off her feet. She and Rosy picked themselves up, dusted themselves down, and looked at each other. Rosy saw a big, round, fluffy thing, very much like a fat teddy bear. It stood upright on two legs. It had two arms with paws at the ends of them. The thing that made Rosy gape, though, was the fur. The base colour on its neck, head, face, hands, and feet was the same honey colour she'd seen before. But on the thing's top half, the fur was a pretty pink and white stripe, which reached right down to her waist. Then, further down, over its legs, the fur was purple. On the top of the creature's head, instead of the upside-down ice cream cone, there was a neat little round bun of yellow hair.
"She's cute."
"Oh, she is."
"Oh, my petals and possets," said the creature. "It's an airless. It's been ages and ages since we saw one of those in Everjoy. It's all right, airless. We won't harm you. Hi, come out, everyone. The dancers in the sky have sent us an airless. Come and see." "I think he got it wrong, mine, Bert. I think she means hairless."
"I think you might be right, darling." When Lork's Mem called, doors flew open all along the bank. Doors which had been hidden under the growing sprays of creeper now became visible, and out of them bounded fluffy bear-like creatures of every size, from the tallest, who were only a little taller than Rosy, to tiny ones the size of a small teddy bear that could fit in the palm of your hand. There were creatures with hair and the fur that looked like clothes of every colour: pink, blue, green, purple, yellow, orange, maroon, crimson, peach, grey, stripy, spotty, geometric, checked, squares, circles. Rosy's eyes nearly fell out trying to take it all in. There were huge mops of curls, long ringlets, wild spikes, huge things that looked like chimney pots, every colour you could imagine, and some you couldn't. It was the most extraordinary sight. And all around, huge blue eyes, big ears, and big smiles bursting out everywhere like the sun.
Oh, they're amazing!
An airless, they all cried. They crowded round Rosy, all trying to touch her, feel her smooth face and hands, and all speaking at once.
"Welcome to Everjoy," they said. "We're the Joyburies." "Pah, you are airless. Chancy's right, it's an airless. Looks so her first clever look. Have you always been airless? Here, have to eat, airless. You must be hungry. Let's all have to eat."
They're a bit silly, aren't they, Icky? But I think they're nice.
Yes, they are a little bit. When they all began saying,
"Let's all have to eat,"
some of the little Joyburies began running to the creeper and picking off the long trumpet-shaped flowers that grew there. Others ran into their houses, coming out with wooden bowls, platters and cups. Some took big earthenware pitchers and ran to the river for water. When the jugs were brought back, full of clear liquid, the flowers were squeezed into them and a pale golden nectar came out. When it hit the water, it made frothy bubbles, so that the water began to look like lemonade. Soon there were Joyburies stirring jugs of drink, Joyburies picking fruits from the trees, and bringing loaves of nut bread, cakes and pies from the houses. More Joyburies gathering fresh leafy green vegetables from cool places by the water where they grew.
We love salad, don't we, Icky?
Finally, everything was ready. The Joyburies sat in a huge circle on the soft grass. The very tallest Joybury, whose fur was white all over and very, very long, thick and fluffy, fumbled in the fur on his chest and drew out a fine silk cord which was suspended from his neck, and on which hung a fine silk bag filled with something small and heavy. He held it up towards the sky and lowered the other paw to the earth.
"We thank the dancers in the sky and the sweet Mother Earth for this land and all it contains," he said, "and for the thing that guards us against all that would harm us." The Joyburies all raised one paw to the sky and lowered one to the earth, bowing their heads. Then their good kind faces split into huge grins as their paws went out towards the food and drink.
Yum!
But suddenly there came a rushing of wings and a loud humming, like the humming of bees, only much louder. For one moment the Joyburies stared at the sky. Then, with one accord, they dropped whatever they were holding, sprang to their feet, and dashed for the bank. They flung themselves through the doors of their houses, slamming them closed at top speed, leaving the beautiful picnic of fruit, bread, pies, cakes, green salads, and tempting drinks laid there. Only Rosy and Snow Baby were left, staring at the sky.
Oh dear, what is going to happen?
Rosy didn't know what to do. She only knew that she hated that sound of humming. So she went and lay down beneath Snow Baby's legs. Snow Baby was made of wood and metal, and he seemed quite unafraid. After a while, she peeped out to see what was happening.
I bet it was something nasty.
It wasn't very nice. The sky had gone dark. A dense cloud had covered the sun, but it wasn't an ordinary cloud. Rosy saw the cloud coming down towards the land, and as it got lower, she saw it was a cloud of yellow and black, a cloud that hummed and buzzed, a cloud of fluttering wings and sharp beaks and stings.
We don't think we like this, do we, Icky?
"It's okay, Impy. Don't worry, sweetie girl. I have to tell you this bit for it to get to the good bit at the end. You'll see. Now listen. They were horrible things, Impy. Half bee, half bird. They swooped on the beautiful picnic meal that the Joyburies had made in a devouring horde, and in less than a minute they rose again, turning and flying back over the land the way they had come. Not one scrap of food was left.
Oh no!
Oh yes, I'm afraid. Gradually, in ones and twos, the Joyburies ventured out of their houses and began to gather around Rosy and Snow Baby. Little Lork had hold of his Mem's hand. He was crying.
What were those things, Mem?
He blubbered.
Those were bee-birds, my lovesome, she said. But they isn't supposed to be able to get in here. Ah, sad days, sad days. Bee-birds can smell food from 100 leagues away, 'tis said, and their sting is death to a joybury. Nothing we do would hurt them or stop them. We'll never be safe from them now. Tem, I reckon this means we must leave Everjoy.
Oh, no.
Tem and Tansy, Lork's parents, looked very grave, as did all the Joyburies, and they all began discussing how they were to move, where they were to go. Suddenly, Rosy spoke up. "Wait a moment," she said. "Why have the bee-birds come back now? What did that big fellow all in white have in that bag? He said it guarded you all from harm. But the bee-birds are harm enough, aren't they?"
Oh, don't tell Rosy. The Joyburies need her to fend for them.
That's right, Impy. Everyone looked round for the big Joybury in white, but he was nowhere to be seen. He was still in his closed-up house.
"Oh, Lork, go and fetch him out,"
said Tem.
"Yes, Dad,"
said Lork, and ran off. It took a while, but eventually the big Joybury was finally brought out of his house. Lork was holding his paw, and the big Joybury was pulling back on it all the way as Lork dragged him along. His big head was drooping, huge tears streamed down his face, and his fur, which had been white all over, was now a murky grey.
Oh, this probably wasn't his fault, my Bert.
"Now, Jorf,"
Tansy pulled the big Joybury into the centre of the group.
"you needn't stand there blubbering and squabbering like a schnaff in the bath. We all know that someone's got one over on you, so you may as well face it. Where's the medal, eh?"
Oh, what medal? Oh, this is good.
Jorf snuffled and waffled a bit. Then he looked up, his big eyes streaming.
I didn't know, he sobbed. "When I looked for it after the birds came, all that was in the bag was a stone."
Oh, someone's taking it. That's what it is.
"You're right, Impy." Tansy sniffed in disgust.
"Ants, I bet," she said. "I bet you went to sleep out in the field again, just like we're always telling you not to, and some of those nasty big diddling ants came and took it away. And now what? That's what I'd like to know. Now what, you useless great wool plop?"
Jorf hung his head, and everyone else fell silent. But Rosy was thinking. "If you please," she said to Tansy, "what is this medal? What does it do?" Tansy looked at her sadly.
"None of us don't rightly know, Airless," she said. "We only know the dancers in the sky gave it to us long ago. The bee-birds won't come when one of us Joyburies wears it. That's the thing. One of us has to wear this kind of thing. The smell of us mixed with the smell of it, it's something the bee-birds hate. Of course, they don't like the smell of it on its own. That's why they don't hurt Snow Baby there. He's got it in him. I dare say you got some in you too, Airless. But there's none in us, or in this land. Us and it, that's the thing."
Oh, goodness gracious. I wonder what... I think we might know, Iggy.
Clever Impy. Rosy sat on the grass and looked at Snow Baby. She thought of hiding underneath him and how the bee-birds had flown near, but not too near. Yes, she was sure she knew what was needed, but what could she do? She felt in her pocket, and then she smiled.
Yes, we were right, weren't we, Iggy?
"Jorf," said Rosy, "I think I can help. Come here if you please." Jorf got up from the grass and lolloped over to her. Rosy put her hand into her pocket and drew out the 50p piece she had meant to use for her bus fare home. She also took out the few extra pennies from her little leather bag which she hadn't spent at the fair. Jorf opened the silk bag around his neck, and Rosy dropped them inside. "Now," said Rosy, "guard these better than you guarded the medal. They will clink and jingle as you move, so you will know right away if anyone has tried to take them when you are asleep. Please, Jorf, keep yourself and my friends the Joyburies safe."
Aww.
Jorf thanked her and bowed. "Do not look so sad, Jorf," said Rosy. "You didn't mean this to happen. It could have happened to anyone. Just keep this new medal safer. Try harder. That's all any of us can do."
Aw, she's so lovely.
"She is." Jorf bowed again. Suddenly, his murky grey fur turned shiny white all over. His hair, instead of lying flat on his head as it had been, sprouted up into a thick mop of silvery white curls. He looked like himself again.
I like that. They're so cute.
"Now," said Jorf, "let's all have to eat."
In minutes, another picnic had been laid on the grass, better and bigger than the last one. The Joyburies and Rosy sat in a circle around it. Jorf took the little bag with its new guardian medals in his paw, raised it towards the sky, and lowered his other one to the earth.
We thank the dancers in the sky and the sweet Mother Earth for this land and all it contains, he said, and for the thing which guards us against all that would harm us.
He paused a moment.
And for sending us our friend the Airless to save us from danger.
The other Joyburies bowed their heads, raised and lowered their paws. Then they began sharing the lovely food and drink, laughing and chattering, and in no time the picnic had turned into a party.
Oh, that's so true.
Suddenly, Rosy had a very strong feeling that it was time to leave. The Joyburies were laughing and talking among themselves. She slipped quietly out of the circle, went to where Snow Baby was waiting for her under a tree, jumped onto his back, and in a moment they were in the air. It didn't seem too long before they were landing on the fire escape outside Rosy's bedroom window. To Rosy, the days seemed to have been endless, but it was only just beginning to get twilight. She jumped down from Snow Baby's back and hugged him, looking deep into his big eyes. "Thank you," she said. "You're the best." She didn't say goodbye. Rosy watched Snow Baby as he took off, heading back to the fairy fair. As she turned towards the window that would let her back into her bedroom and her ordinary life, she knew for certain, deep in her heart, that this wasn't the last time she would need to help the Joyburies, or the last time she would fly to adventures in Everjoy on the back of her beloved Snow Baby. They would be seeing each other again.
Oh, my Bert. How lovely.
Oh, I'm so glad, Lippy darling. I love telling it to you. Come on now. It's getting late, really late. You pop off back to bed. Your headache will be all gone in the morning, you'll see.
Headache, my Bert? Excuse me. Don't have a headache anymore. We left it. We left it in the land of Everjoy. Didn't we, Icky?
Oh, I do love you, Impy.